Hello, Florida, and hello, America. It's the Joe Mullins Show, and we'll welcome you all to this beautiful weekend. Very excited to be in the greatest state in the greatest country in the world. We're here live in Florida, and it's actually, we're not live in Florida. I'm recording remotely from Augusta, Georgia. We're getting ready for the Masters, but my heart and my spirit stays in Florida, where it always is going to belong. And my guest today is the same way. We've got a very special person today, Florida native Joe Gruters. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joe. So thanks so much for having me on.
Now, I don't even know how to title you anymore. It's been Senator Gruters, Chairman Gruters, and now you have worked your tail off over the years. To me, you're a friend, and it's like I do with some of the congressmen and Senator Scott when they come on. I have to remind myself, don't call him Rick, call him Senator Scott, and I'm going to do that to you. Let's talk a little bit about you, because a lot of our listeners, I don't know how they hadn't heard of you, but I'm sure in Tampa and Sarasota they have. In Orlando, they probably don't want to hear about you with some of those little liberal areas. But Jacksonville, Flagler, Daytona, let's talk a little bit about your history and what all you've done. Now, Joe, just to say it to the listeners, Joe is the current chairman of the Republican Party. Let's see. Now, I always want to say
The Republican National Committee, exactly.
Yeah, right. RNC. Yeah, I always want to say Republican Party of Florida. So it's you have now been, Trump has put you and worked with you to get you at the RNC, and you're leading the way. But let's talk a little bit about your history and your path that got you there.
Well, yeah, Joe, and we met when I was the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, where we had tons of success. But when you look at my background, I always say that I'm a grassroots chairman. I started off as a door-to-door walker when I was in high school. Then they promoted me to the grassroots chairman of my local county. Then I became a chairman for 4 years of a club, then chairman of my county in Sarasota County, where we had tons of success for about 14 years before I became chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. And then it's like I've spent my entire adult life in the minor leagues of party politics before I got the call about 8 months ago from the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. And he said, Joe, we need you to come in here, and we need you to deliver, and I need you to win the midterms for the team. And I need you to help me. And I, of course, when the president calls, you say yes. And I said, listen, and he was trying to sell me on taking the job. And I said, Mr. President, you don't have to sell me. I think back in the Butler, Pennsylvania, I think when he moved his head, I think God saved him. And I think God saved him not to save the country, but I think he's saving the world. I think our backs are against the wall. And I look at what the future holds. And I said, thank God President Donald J. Trump won. Look what he's done over the first 15 months as president. He's done more than most presidents do in 8 years. And every single day he's delivering. That's why the Democrats have TDS. That's why they're going crazy. He's had so much success. And we're so fortunate to have him as our leader. And I'm just lucky to be a part of his team. And of course, we want to make sure he has 4 full years. And so we're going to do everything we can to make sure that happens.
Now, Chairman Gruters, I would love to find out, and I'm sure our listeners would, the RPOF has nothing, amazing organization. Evan Power, great guy, does a wonderful job with it. Really good leader that came in behind you and Christian. I love what you guys do. But there's a lot of drama in those state parties. What is it like nationally? That's what I would like to know.
I always say same meetings, different people. You know, what's crazy about life and what's crazy about the party is if you give people a chance to organize and if you point them in the right direction, you can get people moving. And I always say, if you focus, the average chairman only survives about 2.1 years. A chairman, you could be super successful if you get people focused on the fundamentals of the party. That's getting out the vote, registering voters, and election integrity. If you do that and you get people a reason and a pathway to volunteer their time and get them to channel their energy in the right direction, you could have lots of success. But if you don't, then there'll be infighting and everything else. So the key is to make sure you're moving forward, you're giving people a chance to organize, and you're giving people a goal. Now, the entire goal for this cycle is making sure the president has a full 4 years, and we need everybody. If we're going to defy history, what's amazing is only 4 times in the last 150 years has the incumbent party been successful of holding the majorities. We have a chance to defy history. I think we could do it. But we need everybody to come together. We need everybody to help us with our election integrity efforts. We need everybody to help us on our ground and our grassroots efforts. Go to GOP.com and give us your time or treasure and be part of this movement to help make sure the president is going to be president for a full 4 years, because we saw what happened in the shutdown earlier this year and what's happening right now with DHS. 43 days earlier this year, the Democrats held the government hostage. And if they somehow win, which I don't think they will, but if they somehow get a hold of the House or the Senate, they're going to investigate, they're going to obstruct, and they're going to impeach. And all this great momentum that this president's built is going to be over. We have to make sure we win these midterms. We have no option other than to plow forward and do whatever we can to make sure we're successful.
Now, Chairman Gruters, you mentioned about some of the things going on and the economy. Certainly, the economy is probably the hottest topic. We've got a lot of issues worldwide, but our economy and inside America, I travel a lot. Just recently was at the airport in Atlanta with 5-hour wait lines. Flying to Orlando, they redirected. So what the Democrats have done, and of course, they have the media. That's why shows like this are so important, to give the opportunity to our elected officials like Senator Scott, President Trump, other people that come in to be able to say what's really going on. But they have the media. The media is now trying to make people think, okay, President Trump and the Republican Party is causing the shutdown. They're causing everything, people to walk off their job and leave. It's unsafe. What is your comments to statements like that are being said?
Joe, I'm so thankful that you said that, because you're exactly right. The mainstream media carries the bag for the Democrats. It's exactly what's happening. The Democrats are at fault. They're the ones holding the TSA agents hostage. Thank God President Trump stepped up and make sure they got paid. You know, I travel all the time, and it's a disaster out there. And, you know, we're in a conflict with Iran. We have all these other issues going on. And for the Democrats to play games and not one to fund the Department of Homeland Security, it's outrageous. But you're exactly right. The mainstream media has been carrying their bag. But this is what the Democrats want. They want us to focus on chaos. They want us to focus on any issue other than all the great things the president's doing, because they know that their only issue that they talk about is they don't like the president. They don't like his attitude. They don't like other things. But in reality, this president has done more for the average American, like I said, than almost any president has over the last 50 years, certainly over the last 50 years, because he's stealing all the issues of the Democrats. I mean, think about the average working man. Think about the big, beautiful bill that was just passed. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. And if you think of the overtime, I just read an article that the Democrats don't even know what to do. It's so successful. This president is making things happen. And so the Democrats can't counter. They're no longer the party of the working man. They're the party of socialist Democrats, of Mamdani and AOC and these left-wing woke radicals that want to put boys into girls' bathrooms and other crazy ideas, rather than focusing on kitchen table issues that are going to help people pay their mortgage, make sure that they're really, at the end of the day, making sure people have the opportunity to live the American dream and help provide a path for people's kids to do the same.
You know, bringing up the big, beautiful bill, the biggest topic that we had before what's going on right now, they've certainly shifted it to Homeland Security, to ICE, stuff like that. All the fraud that was found from the Biden and Obama era, the fraud in SBA, the fraud up in Minnesota, you know, that was unbelievable. And all of a sudden, the Democrats now want to shift it to say, okay, it's all about ICE. It's about killing Americans. It's about going through their towns. No, it's about finding that fraud. What are your comments on how this narrative, the media, has shifted from this?
Well, listen, they don't want it to be exposed. I mean, what's happening is, and I've heard a lot of information on the fraud, and so stay tuned on that. But I'm so thankful that the president has put Vice President J.D. Vance in charge of this fraud, and they're going to start going after this in a big way, because it's such a massive level, and the average person doesn't feel it. That's why people don't want to talk about it. But if you had a balanced budget and you force people to talk about it, because if you had to pay your fair share, then everybody would be outraged. Everybody should be outraged, because people are stealing this money And instead of it going to needy families and people that are deserving, it's going into a lot of illegals' pockets. It's going into these NGOs and other areas that are being diverted. And it's not a good thing, but stay tuned. Some big things are about to happen on that.
Well, you got so many people from North Carolina that were hit with a hurricane. Georgia, my area, Augusta, Georgia, was totally devastated. Matter of fact, they were worried about the Masters last year, if they were going to be able to have it and what the course would look like. You got all these people that are impacted and affected. And when Biden was in, a lot of them in North Carolina talked to me about Kamala's husband flying into North Carolina and viewing it with her and walking up to individuals saying, you're destroyed. It's going to be impossible to build back, but we'll buy your land for mineral rights. They wanted it for mineral rights. I heard several instances where people grabbed guns and said, if he comes to their property, they're going to shoot him. And I said, that's pretty serious. But that's how frustrated and upset they were, to now where we're seeing people get the help and the aid that they need thanks to President Trump.
Yeah, President Trump stepped up. Michael Whatley, who was the former chairman who's running for the U.S. Senate, really stepped up and played a big role. I think he was some type of chairman in one of the committees there to help bring really justice and to shine the light on the region to make sure that they got the resources they need. And I think that they did. I think they're recovering. It's a slow progress, but I visited North Carolina quite a bit, and it's they've seen a massive turnaround, and they are getting the help that they need. And but I am thankful that President Trump is willing to go above and beyond to make sure that Americans are protected. And if you want to go back and talk about something else, what's interesting, I always go back to the State of the Union. Think about when President Trump said, stand up if you support Americans over illegals, and not a single Democrat stood up. Think about that. Shows you how far left that the Democrats have gone and how far from reality and common sense and reasonableness they've gone. We're the party of the mainstream. We're the party of common sense. And President Trump is doing exactly what he campaigned on.
I think President Trump could, you're speaking about, I think President Trump could bring the doorway to heaven to earth, and the Democrats wouldn't go into it because he brought it here. They don't care about anything he does or has done. Now, you're talking about the midterms. Certainly, they're important. Recently, there was a bill that came through that you guys pushed that the NRC was very active pushing. It's the Save America Act. How important and how crucial is that bill, and what is the teeth behind it?
Well, 84% of Americans are for it. Everybody should be for it. I'm surprised it's only 84%. The people that are not for it are the elitist DC elected officials that are the Democrats who have been blocking it at every turn. Think about this. Why would you be opposed to voter ID when you vote? Why would you be opposed to providing proof of citizenship when you register to vote? There's one reason. The Democrats are trying to cheat. They flooded our country with tens of millions of illegal immigrants, and now they want to give them the pathway to vote. And of course, they say, well, you can't prove that. But we prove it all the time, number one. Number two, a lot of these states won't even let us look at the voting rolls, right? So then they block access. And so I go back to, they don't want this because they want to continue to find ways and pathways to allow them to skirt the system and to cheat. We're for common sense. We're for securing democracy. And look at Florida, Joe, where, if you remember the 2000 election controversy of Bush versus Gore and how far we've come, we were the laughingstock, hanging chads. Now we're a state of 23 million people. We could deliver results. We have 67 counties, both Republican and Democrat supervisors, and we could deliver results within 60 minutes of polls closing. Everybody has full faith and confidence in the system. We should demand that nationwide. But the Democrats don't want that because they want to continue to find ways to cheat the system.
Now, Chairman, we're talking about the midterms and the elections coming up, and I want to use Florida. You brought it up with the Chads and the problems that we've seen there. Florida just recently, amongst a few other key places in the country, had some seats that have traditionally been Republican, the mayor race in Miami, the state house race in Palm Beach County, the state house race or the Senate race that was replacing the lieutenant governors in Tampa. We've seen some turns by Democrats. I just saw a post earlier today where Nikki Nikki Fried, had posted, "We've tasted blood and we're going to go for more. We can flip these seats. We're going to flip these seats." Democrats aren't sitting back. They're not giving up. What is your comment to the listeners about how to take this serious? And is this a trend that we're in danger of seeing during the midterms?
Well, listen, special elections are special for a reason. And listen, we don't want to lose any races, but those races were all really in blue areas. But I think we'll win them all in November. I think they're temporary. You know, what drives people in these special elections are anger. I think the more the president does and the more successful that he is, I think the more it ticks the Democrats off. And so they get off their couches and they get out and vote. But I think we'll win in a normal election cycle, all three of those races. We're well positioned because we have the messaging with what the president's already delivered and what he continues to deliver for us. And of course, President Trump is the best messenger that this party's ever had. I said he's a phenomenal showman. And he's already said that he's going to barnstorm the country. So we're going to be going and taking the president and his team around the country to all the districts and states where we need a touch, because he's the person that could deliver these low propensity voters when it counts. And you got to remember, what are we focused on? We're focused on winning the midterms. It's U.S. House, U.S. Senate races where we need to win them. And I think we're in a great position to defy history. We just got to execute the plan and use the president and use his messaging and use the president himself to make sure that we win these districts when it matters.
Now, the Watson case down in Palm Beach County, what we saw with John Maples running for office down there. John, great guy, great with the public. There was an arrest down there. We've not heard the media talk about it much. They arrested it, and all of a sudden, it's become quiet news.
They arrested him. They've stopped talking about it because it was a Democrat who did that, who was tampering with the evidence. But listen, we go coast to coast. We have over 120 lawsuits in 30 different states. We're bringing the hammer wherever we can, because the president, when he talked to me about taking on this job, one of his top priorities is to make sure we have safe and secure and fair elections, protect democracy, make it as easy as possible to vote and as hard as possible to cheat. The Democrats are trying to do whatever they can to make sure they hold on to power. What we're trying to do is making sure that you have one American citizen, one vote. And you brought up the Watson case, which is unbelievable. I was at the Supreme Court last week, and during the opening remarks of the Supreme Court case, and when I went and had the press conference after, that's going to be historic, because but what a lot of people don't know is there's 14 states and the District of Columbia that allow absentee ballots to be counted after Election Day. Well, Election Day means Election Day, and we shouldn't have these races that end up having, weeks and go on for weeks and months as people are trying to gather those absentee ballots. We're going to stop that. Hopefully with this case, it's going to be massive, one of the biggest election integrity wins that the party has had. And it just shuts down another area of where the Democrats try to use loopholes to try to cheat the system.
You know, when I saw President Trump win in 2024, I think all of us, we were down in Palm Beach County, and I didn't want to go to bed. I had never, because of the prior election, going to bed and waking up when we went to bed and President Trump was leading, and all of a sudden we woke up and something happened in America that we had no clue how it happened, and we had 4 of the worst years of presidency, if you want to even call that. That time we saw President Trump win, doing the same thing he did in 2020, nothing different, the same crowds coming. We saw him win. Do you feel our election are going to be safer now and more watched and more scrutinied, or is this still a threat that we have to be concerned with?
Well, 2020 was a big wake-up call, and so what we did is we got to work. And just like when Florida got to work after the 2000 race, the RNC went to work after the 2020 race, and every cycle we've been better. 2022 was much better than 2020. 2024 was better. Even 2025 in races, special elections last year, we deployed our teams. We're getting better every day. These lawsuits are helping, but people on the ground is so important. Poll workers, poll watchers. That's why we need people to go to GOP.com and join us. We need people to help. But yes, it's a top level priority. It's one of the most important things as president the party wants us to focus on. And we are. We're going to have just as big of an effort as we did in 2024, if not greater. It's critically important to making sure that people have confidence in the system. And we're trying to work overtime to make sure we provide that.
Now, Chairman, will we see a midterm? Will we see a midterm convention? There's a lot of talk about it. We're excited in Florida. We love conventions.
Well, listen, the party gave me authorization to move forward, but we haven't decided exactly how that's going to look. And so it's the president. It's his convention. We're going to follow his lead, and we're waiting. But I would say stay tuned on that. But the way I envision something like that happening is like a Trumpapalooza. It's our way to highlight all the incredible things that this president has done over the course of the first, by that time, 18 months in office. And if we could do that and show people all these great things, real human stories, I think we can really use that to then catapult the president barnstorming the country, getting low propensity voters to turn out. And so I think it's a home run, and I'm excited, and I hope it happens.
Chairman, to let our listeners know, even in all over the country, actually, our listeners in Georgia, our listeners in New York, Chicago, we got them all over. It's unbelievable how Salem has stretched out and grown, and the network that they provide. What is your recommendation to them to get involved? How can they get involved with the RNC, and what do you recommend them doing locally, state, and federal?
Well, get involved with your local and state parties. That's first and foremost. And go to GOP.com. Sign up. We'll get you put in the right spot. We need people to volunteer for election integrity efforts. We need people to volunteer for walking door to door and making calls. We need people to donate their treasure, right? The only way we're going to win is we have to prepare for this battle ahead, and elections are expensive. So go to GOP.com, give us your information, and then go follow me at Chairman Gruters on Twitter and some of the other social media accounts, and then be active. Don't let the radical left win an argument. Go in there and help us on social media and defend the president and help push the president's agenda. Because, like I said, he is not only saving the country, he's saving the world, and we need everybody's help if we're going to defy history this November.
Chairman, I know you're busy, and I want to thank you for coming by. And that is why these shows are so crucial, because you're right. The media doesn't tell the story. We've got to get the story out to be able to give you guys the voice to come in and let us know what's really going on, what we really need to do. And it's just such a pleasure to have you take time. We're proud of you in Florida. We're proud you're leading the way, but don't get too far away from Florida. We need you there as well.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you having me on your show, and have a great time in Augusta.
Thank you. And remember, listeners, you can watch our show anytime at the Joe Mullins Show on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and Instagram. This show and many others. Tune in. Have a great weekend. And remember, live, work, shop, play in Florida, the greatest state and the greatest country in the world. Have a great weekend.